ECPD advisory, and what I really like is the focus, the increased focus on wellness and mindfulness in and for our early care and education professionals.
Good morning, I'm Pamela Harris, President of Mile High Early Learning and co-chair of the ECPD. The innovation I'm going to share is called, it's Boomers Leading Change, and it's a small organization who has figured out ways to engage boomers to share their wisdom and knowledge with us. Their focus has been on health, but they are really interested in getting into early childhood. So I think it could be really an amazing impact in terms of our workforce. We have lots of ways that we can utilize boomers, either as volunteers or even as paid staff.
Good morning, I'm Christina Walker from Clayton Early Learning as well as the Raise Colorado Coalition. Many people have touched on a lot of the things that I was going to say, which is one of the problems with going last. But I just wanted to lift up particularly something that Mr. Washington talked about, which is engaging parents and engaging fathers. Clayton has created a fatherhood committee that is very robust and has been working for about a year now to really start thinking through ways that we can engage fathers, and it's father-led. So the fathers have identified their goals and objectives with the committee, and they've also received a grant to do some of the work that they want to do over the next year. And we're also in the process of building a parent ambassador program with help from Educare Maine, since we're an Educare site. They're providing us with technical assistance on how to kind of work towards building that up so that we can start it in the fall. And we have 4 parents that are leading that with staff on how they want it to look. So I think, again, it's about not just creating a program for, but working with families to make sure that it's what they need and it's what they want.
My name is Therese. I'm the PDG program assistant, and I'm new.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Pelletier, the Early Childhood Leadership Commission program assistant. So I'm going to read everyone's names that's joining us remotely.
Let me just jump in. We have about 30 people online. So rather than, everyone's been sharing their innovative practices as well. So rather than asking poor Amanda to read all 30 of those right now, let's just have her read the names of the folks that are joining us. And then please know we've been capturing all of these. We'll put them all together, include the ones from people on the phone, and then share those out to everybody so we could sort of keep this running list going. So Amanda, let's hear who is on the phone, and then we'll go from there.
We have Amber Bibley, Ashley Simpson, Aveline Rodriguez, Viviana Martinez, Corey West, David McPhee, Dawn Clow, Denise Fletcher, Josie Waters, okay, Julie Becker, Carrie Daggett, Kate Jonkowski, Kimberly Rhino, Lisa Sadar, Lucy Hunter, Lucille Echohawk, Michelle Bender, Melanie Grindelwald, Michelle Sharp, Nikia Collins, Princess Mack, Rebecca Wilson, Sarah Carvley, Shannon Greeley Lincoln, Stacey Howard, Stacey Petty, Tamara Schmidt, Teresa Rapstein, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry if I misspelled or mispronounced anyone's name.
Thank you all for joining us by webinar. We know that can be challenging. So as we go through, we'll have folks standing up here at the microphone, so hopefully you can hear us okay. And then know that we are collecting everything that you did share, and so we'll make sure that's included. Also, as we go through, if you want to interject with comments or questions throughout the next presentations, just either type those in and Amanda can read those, or let us know, type in there that you want to be unmuted, and we'll try and unmute you on our side.
Wait.
Oh, one more.
Good morning, I'm Brittany Lane. I'm the Director of Educator Preparation at the Department of Higher Ed. One of the things that we're particularly proud of is we received $2 million from the legislation for grant funding to address specific teacher shortages between school districts and higher ed partners. And we were able to fund some that have high school programs, so getting the high school pipeline linked in with the ed prep providers, and one of which, specifically one of which is addressing early childhood teachers up in St. Vrain. They're working on a pipeline program that we're pretty excited about.
Thank you. Wow. Boy, talk about innovation. This was innovative. It was incredible. But we are considerably behind time, so we're going to have to. But that's okay. We really got some great stuff. So next on the agenda is the Preschool Development Grant Updates with Lindsay Dorneman and Heather Craiglow.
Hello. So I won't reintroduce the ladies in the room, but I do want to thank Lisa, Kristen, and Therese for joining us today as new members of our PDT grant team. Aveline Rodriguez is joining us by webinar, and she'll be focusing on our transitions work as well as partnering with Kristen on additional alignment and coordination activities. And we have one additional individual who is named Joanna Barreras, who is our dedicated finance and contract specialist. And so a lot of our vendors will have pretty close contact with Joanna, but we're pretty excited to be, I would say 90% staffed. We are still looking to employ a early childhood workforce coordinator. And so we're getting hopefully close to finalizing that recruitment, and we'll hope to announce that within the next couple of weeks. We do have new vendors, and so last month we announced that SE2 is our selected vendor to do the statewide No Wrong Door communication strategy, and so they'll begin their work in June. Carrie's been working hard on the ELDG content update, and when she concludes that work, network affiliates will be picking up the rest of that project to develop new communications tools, videos, and updating the website for earlylearningsco.org. And that's the same organization that did the videos in 2016, so we're really excited to have them on board again. And then additionally, we have an evaluation vendor, so we'll be working with the Butler Institute for Families out of the University of Denver to develop the evaluation plan for years 2 to 4 of the grant. If we're not funded, that information will still be pretty relevant as we implement our strategic plan. And then finally, I'm excited that a couple of our folks are in the room today. So we have engaged with Child Trends to do our strategic plan. And so they'll be working with both Marzano and Early Milestones Colorado to do that work. They're going to say a few things about some of that, but before we start, I just want to share that we did make our internal selection for a needs assessment vendor this week, and so we'll be able to announce that next week. Looking at kind of the scope of what we want to accomplish with the needs assessment and the strategic plan, we took a deep look into those timelines. We realized that October just isn't going to be possible. And so our new timeline to submit those items, both for ECLC review and to the federal government, will be December 30th of this year. So we'll hopefully kick off both of those activities, the planning and the assessment, in June. And then again, we'll be looking at about 6 months before we're complete with that work. Jennifer and Carrie, do you want to share anything?
Sure, just very quickly. I'm personally thrilled to be partnering with our very, very powerful team, and the lead on the Child Trends side is Sarah Daly, so some of you might have worked with her before. Just a very brilliant team. So we're excited about that. The approach that we plan to be taking will require all of you more than once. So we're I think thrilled to see so much engagement at this meeting, and very happy to be able to use this to make the plan as strong as possible. And then mentioned, we have some interesting ways that we're thinking about making sure that the parent voice is right there on an ongoing manner to make the platform and the plan as strong as possible. And excited to be flexible as all these timelines blend together, and excited really to meet the needs of the team and work closely with everyone.
Great. And one last thing. So the June PQA meeting. Oh, sorry, Carrie, did you have anything to add?
No, that's okay. No, I just echo everything that Jennifer said. So, sorry, it's on. I'm just not talking loud enough. Sorry. And that Marzana will especially be doing a lot of the work around the family engagement piece and talking to family stakeholders. And so I was writing down everybody, or trying to, as they were talking and thinking, okay, that would be a good person to talk to try to engage this group or that population. So as Jennifer said, we're going to definitely be leaning heavily on a lot of people in this room, and just really happy that the timeline was extended too. So for our sanity's sake. So yeah, really excited to get started.
Great. Yeah, so we are still continuing to collect needs assessment strategic plans and preparing those to share with our vendors in the room, as well as our needs assessment vendors. They've been very helpful so far in identifying some of the gaps, especially on the needs assessment side. And also continue to send us any opportunities to engage with families or caregivers in your community. We've been getting some really great information about populations we may not be interacting with regularly that we can then share again with our team to do that outreach. And then the last piece, the June PQA meeting will be a webinar only. It is our goal to have both the strategic planning and the needs assessment vendors present during that time to talk about their timelines and really get into the scope and activities that they'll be completing to give everybody some shared understanding and hopefully identify areas where everybody can plug into that work. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great reports. Okay, moving on, early childhood legislative updates. Bill Jager.
Thank you. I've been under a rock for the past few months, and I've been on a few of the webinars, but the last PQA meeting I was at in person, there were about 10 people around the table at Chambers, so I don't have enough handouts. Christina has this electronically, as well as Amanda, so I think it'll come out on the website or with notes. So maybe share, I think probably enough for 2 people to look over their shoulders. And if you want an electronic copy, just ping me and I'll make sure to send it to you. My email's at the top. I'll move quickly to try to help get us back on calendar or on schedule here, but what a legislative session for early childhood. And I think a reflection just in general is it's a reminder how much leadership matters when it comes to early childhood, and how fortunate we are to have a governor and a policy staff that includes Scott and Allie Kimmel to have pushed so hard and so forcefully for all these priorities, and how exciting it is that we get to plan over the next few months for what we're going to do next year. I'm not going to go into details on the bills. The summary is sort of to the side, but I will sort of flag some of the highlights and a few things that I think kind of sailed under the radar that are worth pointing out. I will also point out, like, this is very focused on the early childhood components. To JC's point at the previous point, that doesn't include some of the housing initiatives. There was a lot of movement on things like renters' rights and housing, a lot of movement on other sort of family economic security initiatives, health initiatives that aren't captured here. But we're happy to kind of share out as we put together documents like this as we make sense of the session. So first, obviously, full-day kindergarten and preschool expansion are certainly sort of the hallmark early childhood wins of the legislative session. So we'll be fully funding full-day kindergarten starting this fall. Parent tuition goes away. It's a meaningful progress step in its own right, but just a reminder that the more than 5,200 preschool slots that are freed up that had been allocated to full-day kindergarten e-care, that's the single largest expansion of the Colorado preschool program in the history of the state. And so that, yeah. So certainly Angie's blood pressure goes up and thinking about how do we make sure that all gets out there in a meaningful way and how do you expand so quickly. But in many ways, I think it's a preview of what's to come with this governor and with this agenda around how do we continue to expand access to more children to high quality early childhood education. I threw in there as well a bill that was very much focused on the BEST program. That's a school construction program. There are components in House Bill 1055 that are designed to help with the implementation of full-day kindergarten. It allocates $25 million on sort of a per pupil basis following sort of a weighted formula to help with purchase of furniture, equipment, fixtures, sort of one-time costs. It sunsets after a year, but it's trying to help that smooth glide path to implementation. Please, Angie.
Just to add on to that 25 million, the CDE sent out a letter to superintendents this week letting them know that that was available and that CDE will be putting out a survey for all superintendents to complete. First of all, giving us an idea of what their needs are, but second of all, letting them know how they can spend and allocate those funds. And there is also a provision in there that they could use it for preschool along the same spending categories if needed and if other needs have been met. So I just wanted to let you know that superintendents are aware and that we are working with them to complete that survey, get that out.
Thanks, Angie. I'll just kind of roll through and then see what questions are there. House Bill 1005, we're just really excited about. This is creating an early childhood educator tax credit in Colorado, introduced on the first day of session, passed on the last day of session. So biting our fingernails all along the way. But built on sort of the model that have been successful in Louisiana and Nebraska, this allows early childhood educators to claim in income tax credits if they are employed at qualified centers or homes, and it's up to $1,000 for an early childhood teacher. And so that's a meaningful investment in a workforce that earns between $12 and $13 an hour. And it has a 5-year sunset, which is nice. Sometimes we get these 3. So it gives us some time to evaluate the impact on credentials. Do people use this incentive to climb the ladder? And it includes sort of an entry point too for those just entering the profession, an incentive to climb up to that early childhood teacher level. Senate Bill 63. This is focused in response to concerns that a number of us discussed over the past year that came out of the family, child care, home community around provisions related to building codes and the ways that building codes and local, state, and federal regulatory environments overlap to make it difficult to offer family child care. The International Building Codes is one in particular that came up, bubbled up through a lot of different channels, Early Learning Ventures, the Infant Toddler Work Group of Raise Colorado, direct outreach to a number of us, My Village, others. So it really is kind of floating out there. We've seen local policy movement to try to respond to some of the building code requirements, but a real sense that state policy movement is needed to kind of avoid a patchwork of regulatory environments. So it kind of started there. But if you look at the legislation, it dovetails nicely with the preschool development grant and the strategic plan that needs to be developed there. It also covers child care center-based care as far as infant care and why it's hard to offer infant care, to really build a full picture of what are the obstacles, in particular around financing and the regulatory environment based on stakeholder input, and then directs the creation of a strategic action plan by December of this calendar year to inform policy strategies going into next year. So again, I think the timing dovetails nicely with PDG, but something we're excited about to sort of say, why is it so hard? Why are we seeing a decline in family child care? Why are we seeing a decline in infant care? And how do we use some of that data to inform policy work and public investments going forward? House Bill 1013, if you recall, in 2014, we created a low-income child care expenses tax credit because the way the state and federal tax codes interact, low-income families, those making less than $25,000 a year, they cannot, by and large, claim the state child tax credit because they can't transfer over from their federal tax form to their state form because they don't have a federal tax liability. And so we created to an innovation that not many states have things like this. It's been highlighted by National Women's Law Center and others, that we have a provision that creates a standalone refundable tax credit for low-income families, so they don't have to worry about that glitch. That was due to sunset, and so a push led by the Colorado Center on Law and Policy and others to make it permanent, like the regular state child tax credit, wasn't politically viable, but it's an 8-year extension. So that's a long time for a tax credit, and really good news there. House Bill 1052 allows local communities to partner to create early childhood special districts. It's worth looking at the definition. It's tailored, but it's inclusive of all of the domains of the early childhood framework, birth to 8. And so we know we have communities, particularly in the Roaring Fork Valley, that are starting to go down the road of planning to create their own special districts to kind of collaborate across jurisdictions. And so another tool in local communities' toolbox to generate revenue to pay for early childhood services. 1194 was the third attempt to address preschool suspensions and expulsions. Ida, to your point. It governs Colorado preschool program, preschool special ed, and then kindergarten, first and second grade, and sets a new standard for school removal focused only on endangering the health and safety of others. And so very excited, a lot of partners engaged on that, learned a lot about it from leaders in the field like Rosemary Allen and Mental Health Colorado and Sarah Davidon and the ARC and Clayton and Save the Children and many others who have worked on these sort of topics. And so to see that pass was exciting this year. 1137 takes the teacher cadet program, which is sort of a teacher pipeline development program, and expands it to make clear that early childhood educators can be included in that. Sort of takes high school and late high school students and creates a pathway to the teaching profession. And so this came out of the Early Childhood School Readiness Legislative Commission to make sure to include early childhood educators. 1193 was a pretty comprehensive bill for families that are facing a number of risk factors, particularly related to substance use, and includes a couple provisions that we thought it would be worth highlighting, specific to piloting strategies to support families who are dealing with substance use treatment, but facing obstacles to accessing that treatment because they can't access childcare. And so it creates some pilot strategies and funds pilot strategies to support access to childcare for families seeking substance use treatment. So you might be in a program that is residential intensive for a long period of time. Your childcare needs might look a certain way. But if you are going to group therapy in the evening 3 days a week, your childcare needs are going to be different. And if childcare is the obstacle, you might want different tools. So this has sort of a number of different strategies proposed to try to learn from, and then an evaluation of those pilots. Senate Bill 104 started in one place and ended in another. Where it started, there was a lot of opposition from public health organizations, early childhood organizations, Children's Hospital, Kemp Center, others, because what it would have done would have allowed local school districts to set the regulatory environment as it affects all children outside of the school hours, and in some in the school hours, so including preschool. It was amended to focus on school-age childcare license types that operate on school grounds. And so that would largely be before and after school programs serving school-age children, and to look and ask the state agencies that oversee them, Department of Education, Department of Human Services, Department of Public Health and Environment, look at the regulatory environment, identify instances of duplication, and then deduplicate, and in that process, choose the regulation that best promotes health and safety. That process is going to be housed out of CDE, and so we'll see as that moves forward. I think we have to be careful. Every year we see efforts to lower the standard for health and safety, and this was this year's version. I think it landed in an okay place, but we'll see what comes out of it, and something for all of us to keep an eye on. I included the Census Outreach Grant Program, so $6 million in the state budget to support census outreach. And I included it as an early childhood thing because children 0 to 5 are some of the most undercounted, young children in particular. And when we think about the implication for funding that are based on accurate counts, it is a zero-sum game. If California does an excellent job counting their 0 to 5 population and we do a terrible job, California will get more resources to support their children. And given the way the federal government has stepped back from the census and created barriers to accessing the census, we think it's great that the state's stepping forward with funding to support that. House Bill 1017 is focused on kindergarten through 5th grade, so our school-age version of our early childhood, and really is trying to pilot ways to get social workers and mental health professionals into school and to elementary schools, and then stick with students for an extended period and evaluate how does that support the reduction, and it's in the legislation. It says mitigating adverse childhood experiences, so like that's in statute, disciplinary actions, behavioral health issues. And so that will have a year of ramp up and then go into effect next year. Senate Bill 10 expands the school-based professional behavioral health services program by another $3 million and creates some additional flexibility. So if you recall, 2 years ago, there was a provision that said school-based behavioral health professional grant program could only go to 7th through 12th grade. So you actually restricted access to behavioral health professionals in elementary school. It's changed in statute 2 years ago, and this actually increases the funding to help support that. And might be worth getting an update at CDE at some point of how many elementary schools are engaging in drawing down these dollars. The family program, Hunter, definitely feel free to chime in here on where things landed, but I think it's important for folks to understand a bill passed that continues the momentum towards paid family leave, allows for a timeline for us still to implement similar to what was introduced, but begins by completing, I think, 3 studies to do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only thing that's new about this is we're going to have to restart this process again next year with hopefully a study. So that'll suck up a lot of air again, so look forward to that.
That's a candid assessment of what the bill does. A bill that kind of flew under the radar, 1280, allows for, it creates child college savings accounts. So it will seed for every child born after January 1st, 2020, about $100 in a 529 account for every child born or adopted in Colorado. It is funded through private contributions, largely through College Invest and the financial planners who run the 529 programs, so groups like Vanguard and Fidelity and others. But they'll be seeding those funds. And then there's provisions around being able to provide financial education. There's no sort of matching funds for ongoing contributions, but it's a version of child savings accounts, and it goes into effect starting January 1st, 2020.
Are there limits for children?
No. So it's children born or adopted in Colorado. Yep. And then over on the back, 199 is the READ Act updates, and Angie, feel free to add, but in short, it makes several changes to support effective implementation. It gives the department a little bit more oversight over the programs or the interventions that are being offered to children with significant reading deficiencies, some additional sort of tightening up of what can be offered with that, some additional tools in CDE's toolbox to support school districts, I think. So.
The only one I would add to that is that one of the things that may interest this committee too is that it does call out for a little bit more intentional opportunity to combine school readiness plans with READ plans. And so that's an opportunity for us to really think about how the school readiness plans and the READ plans really work together.
And then to wrap up, 3 bills we thought we'd highlight that did not pass. The cigarette, tobacco, and nicotine tax that would have funded both behavioral health and health initiatives as well as preschool expansion did not quite get there. I think that was just the first of an ongoing conversation about this topic, and a real kudos to Scott and his team for their thoughtfulness around the allowed uses for what the preschool expansion could have been that were inclusive of so many of the things we've talked about around this table, related to workforce, related to mixed delivery, supporting availability and quality, and not just sort of access and stipends. So ongoing work there. Scott, I don't know if you'd add anything to that dialogue, but more to come.
Yeah, I will in a minute when I do an update, but you know, we appreciate you, others in the field providing us with suggestions and
there was an effort to improve our immunization rates. As you know, Colorado ranks last or second to last in the country for kindergarten MMR vaccination rates, and that's a public health challenge. And so what we thought was a measured and thoughtful attempt to pursue equal effort. It requires effort to immunize your child. It should require effort to also choose not to immunize your child. Failed, and it really was more that it got caught up in the calendar than anything else. So I think we'll see an effort again around this topic. There was a proposed child tax credit that did not pass. And then I included some budget items, some overlap with what's above. Just so you had dollars, I would point out, I think Aaron would kick me under the table if I didn't point out that the CCAP funding allows us to continue to sort of maintain service levels where we are. Doesn't allow us to really kind of expand in the way that we need to serve more families. And so we've got to sort of sustain that investment and then look to additional to make that possible.
And that is because we're trying to pay rates to support quality.
Exactly. That we are doing, children are in care for longer periods of time at higher quality, and providers getting paid to reflect the cost of quality and not just what the bare minimum that it takes. And so how do we not serve fewer children in that process? It requires more money. Good movement at the federal level on this topic as well. The bill that's coming out of the House work is once again proposing to double the discretionary funding for the Child Care and Development Block Grant. Obviously, that has a long way to go to kind of get into the budget, but a good ongoing signal that we've got support at the federal level for ongoing investments as well. So I'll stop there, see if there are questions. Or if we just need to move on for timing.
Other questions?
There's one online. Do you want to read that?
Given that 2 of our local school districts have turned back significant CPP funds since last year, is there a concern we have the ability to identify children based on CPP criteria? Give the additional funds spent. I am concerned that if we cannot spend these funds for the purpose that we could otherwise give the impression that funding for early childhood is not needed.
I can chime in with a thought. I look to Angie too for any thoughts. I think one thing that's worth pointing out is if a local community, for whatever reason, space, no community providers, et cetera, can't use the slots that have been allocated to them, CDE goes through a reallocation process. So we use those slots statewide every year. I realize in some local communities that might feel disheartening, where you know that there are children who would benefit from the need, and to see those slots reallocated elsewhere. But from a statewide point, I don't think anyone could make the case that we have fulfilled the unmet need. I do think it speaks to the need to support, as the tobacco tax would have, supply building, workforce development, human capital, all those reasons why it can be hard to serve children that you know are eligible. I also think in the process of moving forward with CPP expansion, revisiting the eligibility criteria is probably something that school districts would be interested in, local communities would be interested in, to really sort of think about if we're moving from a program only targeted to the very at risk to one that's designed to serve more children, we have to revisit our eligibility criteria.
This is Angie, and I just want to thank you for addressing that, just because those eligibility criteria are listed in statute, and so that's something that programmatically we don't make a decision on, but that is a statute-based requirement.
And I would point out there is a way that local communities can add additional eligible criteria. So local communities can add to the list and say, we have a local need related to X. There is a process, and I think it does involve the state board, if I'm not mistaken, and we could get to Angie with that. But if there's sort of a sense that the criteria aren't picking up on something in a local community, there is a process in place to allow for the addition of additional criteria.
I think also there's an opportunity for more blending and grading of the funding sources so that you can offer, so for instance, if it's not meeting a parent's need to have a 2.5-hour day, that there's ways in which you can combine that funding so that they're actually getting wraparound care for a parent's workday schedule. So if you're seeing that in your community, that's one of the reasons why CPP isn't being taken up.
Yes.
So just curious, Bill, if you know or someone else from OEC, the expansion for early intervention funds, is that to expand to serve more children, or is that in relationship to the pilot regarding evaluation?
So it's the other half of your office, so you're closer even than me, but the dialogue at the Joint Budget Committee was the community center boards identified a figure for what they thought both caseload growth would require as well as sort of management of services. And their figure was in the neighborhood of the 3.3 million that was allocated. I think just looking at caseload growth, it was around 1.6 million was the estimate from the office. So the Joint Budget Committee fully funded the 3.3 million, but I think it's largely to support CCBs managing caseload growth as well as program coordination, service coordination, as opposed to funding those pilots that are ongoing.
Other questions, comments? Bill, thank you so much, and to the Children's Campaign for your leadership. Okay, updates from the governor's office. Scott?
Hello, everybody. Scott Roginski again from the governor's office. And I just want to start by thanking you for inviting me to the meeting today, and also for all your great work that you do every day for young children and families in both a service and a policy context. So I just got back here to Colorado. I've been a long-time resident and participant in early childhood and K-12 policy for many, many years. So it's great to be back, and again, really appreciate all your work. I want to start, I think you wanted to hear a little bit of an update on FullDay Kindergarten, and my colleague, my coworker, Allie Kimball, some of you know her, she was unable to be here today. She wanted to, so she says hi and gave me some decent talking points for FullDay Kindergarten. To start with, that we're incredibly excited about the passage, and it's one of the hallmark platforms, positions that Governor Polis ran on as one of his top priorities to ensure FullDay Kindergarten in the state, and we think it has a great potential to improve child outcomes moving forward. Second exciting byproduct, as we've discussed, is over 5,200 preschool slots are freed up through the e-care system. And of course, the governor's really looking forward to signing the legislation very soon. He was going to do it this week. You might have heard that there was, because of the shooting, he had to spend time focusing on that. So we're excited. It's something that we should celebrate. It's a really positive accomplishment. And we're then going to turn our attention to looking, forward to working on implementation, working closely with Angie and the rest of the staff at CDE and the decision makers there, and working with school districts. So that's the update. And if you have, does anybody have any questions?
Great.
Okay. If you do, and any questions come to you after today, please contact Allie at our office. And she's our, as I said, she's our lead on FullDay Kindergarten. And then on the preschool issue, we just heard Bill's summary of the legislation. And again, we view this as a real collaborative effort, and this underscores our approach generally. Governor Polis and our staff, we want to be inclusive. We want to hear your voices. I'm going to continue to participate in as many of the community discussions as possible, including through the ECLC and others, because we want to hear from the field. And this was essential in developing the legislative language, particularly the use of the cash fund, because we know, and again, Governor Polis, as you know, ran on universal preschool, and we all know that that can't happen with one flip of a switch. Hey, here's $111 million, go at it, do it today, tomorrow. We all know that this, in some cases, takes a great deal of capacity building, and that it can't be done without quality. And so we have to ensure that there are good standards, good quality, good teacher qualifications, all that. And that's why in the use of the cash fund in the legislation that would have expanded preschool through the nicotine and tobacco tax increase, we list a range of critical infrastructure policies, including workforce, facilities, quality improvements, mixed delivery, flexibility on use of the funds for duration, coordination systemically, both horizontally and vertically, and program evaluation. You know, this, working for Governor Polis, and I've worked for him in now this is the third different capacity, he has a very high priority on child and family outcomes and looking at what is effective. And so we put in the legislation an evaluative component, and we will continue to have these kinds of policies and principles going forward. As disappointed as we were, and this was a major loss, the bill passed the House of Representatives. It passed 2 committees in the Senate before failing on the night before the end of session. So there were some concerns expressed by some legislators, but what we didn't hear a concern is the need for expansion of preschool. And people know, yeah, that it's a research-based intervention that can support so many great outcomes as long as it's done with good quality. So we have a sense that the legislature is interested in expanding preschool. And what the governor said, even as disappointed as we were the very next day, he is very much looking forward to addressing this in the coming year and to getting this done, to expanding preschool, starting with 4-year-olds. So we want to have some flexibility there, but we want to make sure that 4-year-olds are served universally if the parents want the service. And we will look at different approaches, considering the same kind of approach possibly that we just did. But what we want is a process over the next several months, this spring, summer, into the fall, to hear stakeholders' input. We want to hear your voices. What are your suggestions as far as program implementation? What are the key policies that are needed? What are some funding suggestions that any of you have? And we're going to help facilitate this stakeholder engagement process throughout Colorado over the next several months. So we'll look forward to having your input. And any questions on preschool, universal preschool issues?
So I think it's a question across both is, how do we, so we know not all kids are ready for kindergarten
And need extra support, whether it be early intervention, home visitation, healthy steps, or other.
So are there any talks and families want or need to access those services is inequitable across the state? So are you guys talking about just outside of preschool, how else can we support kids' development to be ready for kindergarten?
Yeah, great question. And the part of what quality, we all know what quality early childhood is the comprehensive services and supports. Going along with just, hey, here's preschool instruction. Yeah, children who have special needs, children who are dual language learners. We want to make sure that quality includes connections with health, mental health, dental, vision, hearing, nutrition, physical activity, focusing on ensuring there's not a lot of screen time, parent and family engagement, and these are all central components to quality. So just really appreciate you raising that. It's very much in the front of our minds. And as we build this out, build a proposal looking at the 2020 decisions, we'll want to make sure those kinds of specifics are included. Thank you. Other questions? Yep. Yeah, we know that early childhood is delivered in many ways, and preschool, the way we're looking at it, is a mixed delivery system. That was one of the key provisions in the legislation, and Bill mentioned that. The governor has a very high priority on ensuring that preschool is offered in ways that parents want it. Parent choice is a top principle of all early childhood services, and school-based services are critical, community-based services are critical. Sometimes that means through child care centers, sometimes that means through Head Start. And you know, we want to look at whether preschool services can be offered in other venues. We'll take a look at home-based services. This is for 4-year-olds mostly, and so how that's done is going to have to be looked at very carefully. But as I said, the governor really cares about family choice in a wide array of settings. Any other questions? Two quick things in addition to the Universal Pre-K Proposal Initiative is the Preschool Development Grant, and just really want to thank the Colorado Department of Human Services and the Colorado Department of Education in particular, and others too, but those two agencies are really working together closely, Lindsay and Heather and others who are leading the charge at DHS, and we've heard a bit about that today, and already some great engagement from CDE, and the governor's office is looking forward to partnering, continue to partner, and making sure this is a good, really good process. And some of the principles that we are incorporating into our preschool proposal are the same ones that PDG is focusing on. So we're going to make sure all that's aligned really well, and it really does. The timing is really great. And in addition, and Bill mentioned this, Senate Bill 63, which is focusing on family child care and infant toddler care, that this is a very high priority for Colorado. We know that we've been hearing so much about the decline in family child care and infant toddler capacity, and this is such a critical pipeline for success in school and life. So we want to engage in the Senate Bill 63 implementation process, and as Bill said, it dovetails really nicely with the PDG, but it also, we have a new grant from the National Governors Association that will help provide Colorado technical assistance on ways to improve infant toddler care. And one of our big focuses of this initiative is supporting family child care. So it kind of goes to your previous question about in-home care. But I will say that there was a recent report some of you probably saw from 0 to 3 called the State of Babies Yearbook, and it identified several areas that Colorado really needs to work on. So in addition to family child care, things like ACEs, like low birth weight, some of them are chronic and have been around the state for years. And in particular, what we've been talking about is the access to affordable care for the birth to 3 population. And the family leave issues we've talked about is critical. So we want to look at this systemically. And again, with this NGA grant, like with PDG, like with Universal Care Preschool, we want your input. So this is an administration that values feedback and community input. So please let's stay in touch. Hit me up with any ideas, suggestions that you have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there another question? Okay. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you.
And your expertise is noted in this and the governor's leadership. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Anna Jo, and thanks to the leadership of this subcommittee and to the ECLC for your great work.
Okay, so moving on to the discussion of early learning development guidelines, the update. Carrie, Jeremy.
Yes. Does that clicker work? Go over there.
It's easier to hear you.
Oh, from the podium?
But, yeah.
Okay. All right, we are going to make up some time. I mean, we could talk about with this for a long time, really. So I was hard pressed to fit it into 30 minutes, and now I've got 20 minutes. So that's okay. We're going to do our best. So this is just a quick update on the progress thus far for the update to the Colorado Early Learning Development Guidelines. So just a reminder, really quick, right? The guidelines are meant to be a unifying document to serve as sort of a cornerstone for developing professional development, instruction, standards, interventions. So it's 136 pages, I think, and it's pretty meaty, and it's been disseminated in different ways and broken down in different ways for different audiences. So the purpose has not changed with this update. Just a quick reminder, right? This is the wheel, as we affectionately refer to it, diagram that is in the guidelines that shows the breakdown of the age groups from birth to 3, 3 to 5, and kindergarten to 3rd grade. So just wanted to give you a quick grounding again in the guidelines, what they are and what their purpose is. The update is really just to make sure that so the guidelines were not originally, but this latest version was approved by the ECLC in 2012. And so obviously there's been some research advancements since then, as there always are in early childhood constantly. And so we want to make sure that the ELDGs are up to date in terms of those recent research advancements. Head Start Early Learning and Outcomes Framework, the ELOF, was updated in 2015, and they made a number of changes. And this is the reason this is important to the ELDGs is that the preschool age group for the ELDGs was grounded or anchored to the Head Start framework because so many of our early learning programs are Head Start. And so we didn't want to make it difficult for those Head Start teachers to have two different sets of standards that they're trying to follow. So it's really important to make sure they were aligned and enhanced. So also developing enhanced content on transitions. This will be a new piece that'll be included, and then enhanced new content on parent-caregiver experiences. So, and just a reminder, we do have a small group of content matter experts who are helping to guide this work. Many of you are here in this meeting, and then of course the rest of you, the PQA, are serving as a much wider stakeholder input group for the update. This small group has met twice to discuss the update considerations and to move some of those decisions forward. And I'm going to talk to you about some of those things in the remainder of the time here. And then I also have some questions for you all and some opportunities for input from this larger group. We're hoping that you can settle some debates that maybe we're having in our smaller group. So number one, the research-based update. So this is just a taste of what we've been talking about in our small group, right? Is that we're talking about including additional content, primarily in the narrative, and anybody who is on the small group, please feel free to add more here. So on the importance of responsive interactions with caregivers and child development and learning. So we talked at length about a lot of the research developments around parent-child interactions and responsive caregiving, and it's something that's certainly a gap in the current ELDGs, and felt that it was really important that it be more heavily represented throughout. So we're going to make sure to add some more content. We've got lots of specific references and research references to include in there. We'll have specific examples, so we're going to add some more specific examples. We don't want to there's already a lot of examples on what children may do and also how adults may support, but we feel like the guidelines could benefit from the addition of a few more specific examples related to advancements in research, specifically around physical health and development, language development, and then learning through play. This is really only a flavor of what we discussed in our last meeting. So it's you know, there's more things that are going to be represented in terms of the research-based updates, but what we want to pose to you, we're not going to spend time talking about it right now, but because you all represent a wide number of groups here and have lots of expertise in your own fields, is that we'd like to get any research from your field or anything that you're seeing in the field as well as that you think that should be updated in the ELDGs that maybe is currently missing in the ELDGs. And so let me just clarify with Christina. Will an email go out after this, and we'll have that request in there. So be thinking about that from your perspective in your field. If you've seen any recent research or advancements that have informed your work and what you're doing that we should know about and consider to include in the ELDGs. Any questions so far? I'm flying through. All right, so ELDG and the ELOF alignment. Again, that's the Head Start framework. So an alignment was done with the ELOF and the ELDGs in 2017. And it's a pretty massive document, and with Excel files with like 20 tabs, aligning the various domains and indicators across the two documents. And we came up with you know, a set of important considerations where there were maybe gaps or misalignment between the ELOF and the ELDGs,
to see if we wanted to bring it more in alignment or if it's something that we should consider doing in Colorado as well. So this is just one example. These are really kind of fine-grained conversations when we're talking about the ELOF and the LDG alignment. I won't bore you with all of the details, but we discussed for a long time this question of if memory, attention, and problem solving, which are currently in the LDG domain of approaches to learning, should be moved to cognitive development. Because in 2015, when the ELOF was revised, they moved all of these to cognition. And so we had a long discussion around, what does it mean? What do memory, attention, and problem solving mean? And where should they go? And what is most appropriate for birth to 3? And talked a bit about, why they were put there in the first place in 2011, 2012. And we really we had some people on both sides and some that were, very indifferent. And so we'd love to get your input. And if you have any research or any reasoning or a strong opinion, one way or another, whether you think memory, attention, and problem solving should be in cognitive development or in approaches to learning, we would love to hear from you and help us sort of solve our debate. So anybody have any questions on that, or anybody from the small group want to say anything more on that one?
Sure. Do you know why Head Start made that shift?
Yeah, that would be helpful to know. And I don't know, Heather, if we talked about that. We talked about why some of the decisions were made. So, I mean, Head Start cut out a whole domain on creative arts and expression. So music, dance, drama, they cut it out and they just put it basically as one area under, I can't remember which one now, but they made a lot of changes, some more substantial than others. And I don't know, Heather, if you know any of the background on that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure of the background. I believe that 0 to 3 might even have some more detail around that. Although with that, the memory, attention, and problem solving, I believe that Head Start really valued the idea of executive functioning and thinking of the research that's coming out around that, and so thought, it would be so nice to put it in cognition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was valid reasons, and I do know that in the 2015 document, executive functioning was much more emphasized, and so I think some of the changes that you see in cognition and approaches to learning are probably really reflective of that component. So again, if you have a strong opinion one way or another, we are very interested in hearing that. I'll just let you know, a lot of the other decisions were around at the pre-K level, a number of the domains at the pre-K level for the ELOF were moved around or cut completely, like I said, to creative arts expression. And so a lot of our decisions were to make sure that the ELOF remained consistent and aligned with the Colorado academic standards, because the Head Start framework is not in alignment with Colorado academic standards. And so as a group, we were very, it was an easy decision to stay consistent with the academic standards, to not make it confusing and not do this crazy big overhaul on the guidelines when we didn't feel like there was rationale to do that. All right, enhanced content focused on transitions, sorry. So one of the requirements of this update is to include best practices that will support various transitions for young children. And so you see in this table over here, there's six different transition points that our small group has identified as critical to represent within the guidelines. Hospital to home, infant to toddler, home to childcare, preschool, this coordination from Part C to Part B, home or pre-K to kindergarten, and then just daily transitions within the environment that might happen in various settings. What you see on the right hand of that column, those are just sample sources, that not obviously an exhaustive list, but just some that the group has sort of thrown out that we should reference or use to build whatever our content may become when we're talking about the transition points. So what we want to know, one, is are there other transition periods that you think need to be represented? And then two, what sources would you suggest that we draw from to develop this content? Now, how this content is going to be represented in the guidelines is still a little bit fuzzy. We're talking about, if you're familiar with the guidelines, there's a narrative component with each age group as well as at the very beginning. And so I think that narrative component is going to change quite a bit. And we'll have a lot of this transition information built within the narrative, whether that's at the beginning of an age group or at the end to support transitions. We're talking about using a lot of visual aids and icons to help draw readers' attention to, you know, maybe there's a standard way of representing information related to transitions throughout. That's still to be determined. And also remember, there is going to be a communication vendor at the end of this that's really going to be their job as well to help disseminate this information. And this is really just a source document. It's not really going to be able to be everything for everybody, of course. Different audiences need information presented different ways. But we do want to know if you think there's other transition periods that need to be represented that you don't see on here, that we haven't thought about.
Infant to pediatrician, I mean to healthcare. Mm-hmm. That's very important in the first year especially. And there may be things that are already happening between healthcare provider and family. That's the only one I can think of.
Are there any resources or anything you're thinking like that I don't know, that you think of that might be a good reference to draw from?
Existing. I know Vroom is thinking about that, Reach Out and Read. And there are lots of things I think that pediatricians use when you're thinking about what they talk to parents about. Immunization.
What was that?
Bright Futures.
Okay. Others? What about other sources, content to draw from? Again, this is not an exhaustive list here, but just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, but to make sure that there's content that we're including in these different transition points. If there's, yeah, Pamela?
I just wonder about infants starting at the center with another caregiver. Right. Kind of maybe kind of better family health.
So I think it'll be home to child care or preschool. I mean, like either, I think it can get represented in there. Are there specific resources though that you're thinking about that would be really good to draw from or include?
Well, that's what I thought about was early head start.
Okay, yeah.
Pregnant women.
Okay. Anyone else? Pat.
On the pre-K to kindergarten one, there's a publication that I was involved with that's written by the National Head Start Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers, CCSSO, that some people know about. Anyway, I co-wrote it with CCSSO a couple of years ago, and it's a toolkit that provides approaches to school districts, Head Start, and other early childhood programs about the coordination agreements that are required by the federal government in the ESEA reauthorization. Local educational agencies that receive Title I funding must form written coordination agreements with Head Start and other early childhood programs, those other programs if feasible, which in many cases they are feasible. So this toolkit provides different ways to do it. It gives great background on why this is important, and it also gives great background on what roles state policymakers, administrators can contribute, and I will email it to you so you can share it with the group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I don't know if this would be included in a daily transition, not really daily, but transitioning from one classroom or group in the program.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
also wondering, to that point, child care, or like family child care homes, child care providers, or child care provider to child care provider. Yeah, especially like if there are CBT classes, this in the morning and then transition through different programs in the afternoon.
Any resources that you guys can think of that come to mind for these topics? Okay, I like it. Put you to work, I'll take it. If you, another, yep.
That's great. Just coming to me on the coordination transition part C to part B, we don't talk about the kids that transition out of part C.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yep.
So I'm guessing there's those resources, and I'll try to think of their.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And the same with if a kid is in part B for 3 to 5, we don't talk about transitioning out from 5 to 21.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Great. Amanda's going to email me everything that everybody's typing in the chat box. Oh boy. I think this document's going to be like.
Volume 1.
All right. Yes.
I would say the importance of ensuring the social emotional
Support in all of those transitions is something to be highlighted within each.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Okay. Okay. All right. If you think of others as you're driving away today, eating lunch, feel free to reach out to me or Christina or Amanda or anyone, and they will get it to me. So I appreciate this. The next one, our input opportunity is going to be online just because we're short on time, unfortunately, because I really do think this actually could be a very lengthy discussion. So maybe we'll have time another meeting. So again, part of the charge here is to develop parent caregiver experience materials. And so it needs to identify and name parent experience at each stage of child's development. So what you see just over in the figure, it's really just a sample of some ideas that we've thought about to represent parent caregiver experiences. So we want to know what we're missing and what maybe we could draw from. And so, I think what we're trying to develop for this content, which again, I think will probably be represented in the narrative section, is really naming. So like for example, parent self-care with a new baby. You may have not been able to shower for a few days, and that's okay. As time goes on, you'll be able to, bathe for more than 3 minutes, or you'll actually be able to sit down for a meal eventually, and you'll learn to do things while holding a child you never knew you could do. So we want to really identify all of the challenges and things that are new at each stage of parenting, so that it's normalized and parents don't feel so alone or isolated, and they can see themselves represented. And again, a communications vendor who, does this all brilliantly will communicate it better for us, but we were going to get the content in there. So we want you to tell us what you think should be represented in the caregiver experience materials. So we just have talked about talking about responsive parenting, making sure that's included, health and nutrition at each stage of child development, what to expect, the struggles of trying to get your child to eat. Parent self-care, again, would be very important to include, I think. And then this anticipatory guidance piece and resources, so it's really tiny print, when to be concerned, where to go, and whom to talk to when you have a concern. So there could be like a FAQ kind of a document that then directs parents directly to resources as well to answer those questions. So I think that's it. So again, we'll have an email go out from Christina after this, so you can send all of those ideas to us. So the small group advisory is going to meet up to 2 more times. We'll probably need both times to work on the update. And what I'm going to be doing is taking all this information you're sharing today and in your emails back to the small group. and we're going to move forward on primarily the transitions content, and then the parent-caregiver experience are the next big things to really move forward on and get more concrete on. And then at the July or August PQA meeting, probably going to be August, I'm not going to lie, you'll have the opportunity to vote on whether to bring the updated ELDGs to the full ECLC, which will be late August. So you'll have the opportunity to really see them again. If you want to read through the whole thing, you can't, yeah, we're going to make that available to you, or you may just want to read specific sections that are most important for you. So that's it. And then Christina has my contact information, but here it is on here as well. And yeah, I'm sorry we didn't have more time, but next time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carrie. This is like the framework. I mean, these are really important documents for us. So good work, and please get your information back to her if you feel strongly about it. Or if you just want to say great job. Okay, so next is working group updates. So the Youth Wellness Council, and know that we've got people parked in 2-hour zones, and so please go as quickly as you can.
Hi, I will talk fast. Princess was hoping to provide the update for the Young Child Wellness Council, but she has a house full. She's participating in my webinar, so she asked me to do it. Hard to believe, but the Colorado project launch is wrapping up. We are concluding our 5 years of funding, and the Young Child Wellness Council has served to support and guide the work of project launch, and they've just done a tremendous job. As we close out the Young Child Wellness Council's work, we will have our last meeting in June. And so one of the things we've been working on at the last meeting, and we'll continue with the June meeting, is looking for opportunities for members beyond the council. We have a very committed group of council members who want to stay involved with work around social emotional wellness for young children and mental health, and also a very strong family group. So we're looking at opportunities to keep members engaged. There's Raise Colorado has a lot of opportunities, the ECLC working group have a lot of opportunities, so I think you'll see more members from the Young Child Wellness Council moving on to those sorts of roles. We have had a lot of success with family engagement and family leadership with the Young Child Wellness Council. We actually have 2 members from the council who are on this PQA advisory group. That's Ray Washington and Princess Mack. And we have gone from having 2 family members at the beginning of project launch who were members of the Young Child Wellness Council and really just minimally engaged, to now we have 8 family members who are not completely and fully engaged, but also have gone on to this trajectory of family leadership. So we have Young Child Wellness Council members on a national board that is was started by SAMHSA. We have 4 Young Child Wellness Council members who are on the CDHS Family Advisory Board. We have 4 family members that presented at the Parent Possible conference a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And I just want to say that not only are these family members presenting, but they're submitting proposals and they're writing their own presentations. So it's been an incredible thing to watch. We have 2 family members who are co-facilitating the Young Child Wellness Council meetings. So these meetings are not facilitated by staff members. They're facilitated by family members of the council. So it's been very powerful to witness the growth of the council members, not just the family members, but the entire membership has really increased their knowledge and skills around social emotional development and mental health issues around young children and families. So we're pretty excited about that. That's it. I think that's our update, just kind of closing out the project altogether. So anyone is welcome to our June meeting. It's the last Wednesday in June. If you need more information, just let me know or contact Christine or Amanda.
Thank you so much for all the good work. It's been just a joy to watch what you've done and how successful you are with including parents in a significant way.
Thank you. And as I said, we have parents who are looking for opportunities. So if you need family members involved in any of your work, please contact me. They are ready, willing, and they are able.
Yes, let's utilize that talent. Thank you. Okay, the Professional Development Advisory Committee, Pamela, is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So we are reviewing our charter for the advisory group and thinking about membership, and so we'll be contacting Anne because that would be an awesome addition to what we're doing. In our last couple of meetings, we've been talking about credential requirements for teaching staff, and so have talked about what that looks like, and is there a way to create some kind of reciprocity with other states? You may have heard of teach.org. It's a portal for K-12 teachers coming to Colorado, and we think that's what the PDIS we would like it to be, and so there might be some guidance there. We're also excited to participate in the Preschool Development Grant work groups, and so Stacey Kennedy has presented for us. Our Workforce Development Goal Group is doing lots of work around sector partnerships and have had some success with different communities across Colorado. So that's basically pulling together early childhood providers with other service providers who also have an impact on families. I just also wanted to reiterate the mixed delivery system is a commitment we know from Governor Polis, and so we're ready and willing and able to help figure out what that might be. We've given a lot of input also with the Workforce Development Council on the career path. So we're looking at what it is to get into the field of early childhood. And then I just want to say we have been, one of our goals, separate goals, is around compensation. So I want to thank Bill because I really believe that the tax credit for early learning professionals is a significant step and one that we have been waiting to do. So thank you, Bill.
Questions for Pamela? Thank you. Okay, Framework Working Group, Laddie, is that you?
Yes, and Christina. Just a quick, because we had 30 people on the phone and this is such a large group, another reminder to get your programs on the Framework website. And we are very anxious to have this as complete as possible as a tool for the legislature and as a tool for analyzing what we're doing in which counties in the state. And it can be a tool for multiple things, but only if our programs are on there. So, Christina, do you have anything to add? All right, thank you. Everyone go visit it. Go to the Framework website and check it out.
Good prizes. Okay, because we are authorized by the legislature, we must ask if there is public comment. My understanding is we have not had anyone sign up, and so we'll move along. Thank you. We're going to not do member updates because we just don't have the time today, so we're going to very quickly move to next steps and adjournment, and I will just say to you on next steps, if you have ideas for the next meeting as far as the agenda is concerned, please be in touch with Christina. And other than that, I would just say I will accept the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, been moved and second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you so very much. It's been great.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks to the staff. I mean, getting this put together is just incredibly difficult. All right, see you, Letty. See you soon. Yeah. Yes, of course. Wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss it. Okay.